Welcome to the Teach Better Talk podcast, your official podcast for the Teach Better Podcast Network, the hub for all things education, brought to you by teachbetter.com. The Teach Better Talk podcast is committed to answering your burning questions through a variety of lenses and bringing new offers to you and your colleagues to help you thrive throughout the school year. My name is Ray Hewert, and we love your questions here on the pod. If you have any questions that you'd love us to consider as topics for future episodes, please share them with us by emailing info@teachbetter.com.
How can our physical and verbal skills actually lead to building a trusting relationship? There is so much to dive into with a very familiar face on screen today. If you are listening on the Teach Better pod, then you are in for a treat. If you are already watching over on the Teach Better Team YouTube channel, you know what's coming. Before we get too far in, I do want to give a huge shout out to the one and only Joshua _Stamper. He's an amazing member of our team, somebody who actually does a lot of training around working with people. His specialty is in trauma-informed practices, and he is definitely somebody that I lean on and continues to build trusting relationships with those around him. So huge shout out to Josh, somebody who works very closely with Josh on our team, and of course has his own spin of being just the best personality in the room. Brad Hughes is in the house. Brad, I'm so excited that you're here on the show. Second episode. Can you believe that we are launching this bad boy?
It's incredible. It's wonderful to reconnect with you after what I hope has been a wonderful summer for you and your loved ones and friends. And here we are, Teach Better Talk podcast, reimagined, reinvented, re-energized for 2024-25. It's wonderful to be involved, and it's great to reconnect with you in any space, Ray Hewert, especially if it's here in the Teach Better Talk space.
I am so excited to dive into today's topic. I know that you and I could talk on this for ages, but before we get to all of that, in case we have some new listeners to Teach Better Talk, in case you haven't been here since it's all started in 2018 and you're not familiar with Brad Hughes, I definitely want to make sure we have some good introduction. So Brad, tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, kind of all that jazz.
Ray, thanks. This is my 31st year in education coming up. After 16 years as a classroom teacher, I made the shift to school leadership. And so I'm now an elementary school principal in Southern Ontario, Canada. Waterloo region is where I live and work. It's about an hour west of Toronto. And right now I serve a rural elementary school, lovely elementary school in New Hamburg, Ontario. I'm also a husband and a dad of 2 adult kids who keep us hopping and continue to keep us inspired and engaged with all of the things that they're doing, whether it's through work or school. And I'm also a Teach Better team member, training development specialist here with the team, which brings me added personal satisfaction, enjoyment, a lot of joy connecting with Teach Better team members and Teach Better family members in all aspects of our work, just connecting with the great educators from literally around the world. So that's a little bit about me.
Yeah, Brad, I am going to shout out that you also own a dog who I really love to follow all the journeys that you do with your amazing family, including the puppy. And those of you who may enjoy this episode and are brand new, Brad and I used to host multiple different shows together that have been featured on Teach Better Talks. If you need more Brad Hughes time, which I say very frequently in my day-to-day life, you can go back and listen to all those episodes. Brad was a host on our recent Sunday weekly warm-up, which was featured all last year, every weekend. Incredible episodes, about an hour each with cool interviews. And then Brad, we did daily drop-in together. That was really back in the day, that lunch during COVID 2020. And we just had such a blast doing that every single Friday morning. Every Friday morning we were together.
The more we talk, and I figure if we're talking, then we're working towards some kind of improved understanding or solution, and the opportunity to bring guests, educators, fellow team members into that space, Ray, was always a highlight of the week. And I really do miss our daily drop-in mornings. And I know it was an early morning for you in Central Time Zone, early-ish morning here for me in the Eastern Time Zone, but it was a wonderful way for me to kick off my day before heading in to school, connecting with you and connecting with others like Jeff and Josh and Katie's. Wonderful to be involved. And as you know, I love live. So whether you're joining us now on YouTube, on our Facebook page, wherever you're joining us, your favorite podcast application, we're excited to be reconnecting with you here at Teach Better Talk.
It's so funny as I'm reflecting. Obviously, we'll get into the topic today about building trust, but Brad, it's so funny reflecting back when we did the daily drop-in for the full school year. So we did Monday through Friday, every single day had an episode all
Yep.
school year. We even went into breaks. Like we didn't take spring break off. We didn't take, we were live more often than not. We had a few days here and there that we missed. And they were live shows. They were not pre-recorded. We literally were getting up and going live at 6 a.m.
That's right.
every single day. And you and I had Friday mornings. And I loved all the episodes, but I lived for Friday mornings because I knew that it would be a day, like many of us have, where you're kind of dragging a specific day during the week, but you know that you're going to have like the most fun conversation. So I was so like desperate for my Brad Hughes time. I waited for it every single week.
So did I, Ray, and my Ray Hewart time is precious to me. And like you, looking forward to that Friday, and it really made my week, especially when the week is dragging or your month is dragging. Anything that you have to look forward to, either to aspire to do or someone you're looking to connect with, a loved one, a colleague. I love having things to look forward to, and that was certainly a highlight of my week too.
Yeah, and we did some tough shows that year, some great shows, some beautiful shows, some fun ones. Even just reflecting the year that we did that, both on our Friday episodes, this landed. The first was we had a Teach Better family member who passed that we had celebrated. We had done a celebration of life for, and that was a very difficult live for me to do. I remember that like it was yesterday. And then the other one I will never forget is weren't we live on Christmas Eve?
We were. You and I were tracking Santa. We were the voice of NORAD, Santa Tracker here on the Teach Better Talk Network. Yeah, we were tracking Santa. We said, let's do it. Let's celebrate Christmas and the holidays on Christmas Eve with our Teach Better family.
Yeah, so there's only 2 hosts wacky enough to go live on Christmas Eve and track Santa with our hot cocoa. So that was really fun. And now we're into the next phase of Teach Better Talk. Hopefully, Brad, I want to get you to commit to this. You need to come back multiple times because every episode for the rest of this season will be focused on a key question. We have 3 episodes releasing a week. I will give a little bonus that this week we actually do have a bonus episode. So it's 4. But regardless of that, we are bringing in different voices. And I would love your voice to be featured very often in the conversations that we'll be having throughout the year.
Oh, you can count on it. And viewers and listeners, the season is being mapped out as we speak. Ray had shared with me an Excel spreadsheet and incredible detail of all of the guests and all of the topics and all of the themes and all of the ways that we're bringing and adding value to viewers and listeners through Teach Better Talk. So you can count on it, Ray. I see lots of topics where I'm both passionate about, but also that I continue to learn. Even at this stage in my career, always something to learn. And like I said, as long as we're talking about things that are of interest and value to educators, then we're learning together, and we're hopefully engendering some of those conversations in whatever important educational space our viewers and listeners were.
Well, and we're bringing in a ton of educators. Obviously, education is the focus of the podcast, but some of the episodes I've really loved is bringing in other community members that exist in our space to speak on some of the topics that we'll be highlighting. I have a number of interviews prepared for all of you to hopefully enjoy that I learned so much to the point that one I recently just did. If you can see it on screen, I desperately look for a pen, even though we're live, even though I'm on camera. And then I had this moment of hey, goof, this is recorded. You don't have to write this down.
You can go back and take notes later if you wish, but
I know, and I will. There are a number of them that I have to listen back to them because we brought in people that really had value to share, specifically about funding, research, medical advice. I mean, things that I really believe that all of our viewers will benefit from.
And I agree wholeheartedly. I mean, the art of teaching, the art of educating, and supporting and sustaining ourselves is more than simply about lesson planning and delivering information. It's about all of those aspects you talked about, Ray. All of the different pieces, including personal wellness, family wellness, relationships, health and nutrition, getting enough sleep, making sure you look and feel your best when you're walking into a space, creating the spaces where you look forward to to being your best and look forward to sharing time. Like all of those aspects are important parts of what makes education so rewarding and so challenging as well.
Can I say also, Brad, I'm kind of a nerd. I set some high hopes to get some celebrities on the
Yeah.
show, and I've booked a few, and I won't lie, I am nerding out about those. I cannot wait for people to hear who we have on coming on Teach Better Talk. So, friends, if you are just getting started, obviously it's only our second official episode of the show. If you are looking to get an idea of who will be on the show, you won't know until the week of. So we will do our best to give you updates and highlights, but you gotta subscribe, you gotta stick around, you gotta make sure that you're looking, because we won't release the question and the guests until the week of. So
There is an incredible lineup of guests, and one of the things I'm looking forward to, Ray, is reconnecting with educators and thinkers and doers and motivators that we're familiar with, but even more so, just getting to know new voices in the space and learning along with them.
it's going to be a blast. Brad, before we get into our topic, which I know is going to be really exciting, do you mind sharing a little bit about your education journey? I know that you mentioned that you're in administration. You mentioned that you're a former teacher. Why education? I think that will kind of help viewers understand why this is such a passion topic for you.
I think to me, Ray, it all comes down to the relationships. And as a high school student, and maybe even as a middle school student, I had the opportunity um, to be successful at school. And teachers and educators that I trusted and admired put their trust in me as a high school student in doing some peer tutoring. So that's really how I got kind of my appetite whetted for education, was working peer to peer in things like French and German and even mathematics, and seeing the difference that you can make by coming alongside someone. And that peer tutoring for me, Ray, was a really incredible experience, because you have to approach that with some sensitivity. Even as a teenager or a young adult, you're working peer to peer with someone who may be struggling, and so you want to build that relationship so that you're someone that, you're giving up your lunch hour to sit with and look over some calculus or look over some French. But working peer to peer really helped me grow my interest in education, but also it was those little taps on the shoulder, Ray, where educators that I valued said, "Hey, I think you've got a gift for this. I think this could be a career opportunity, a career path for you to explore." So when I completed high school, and I have a degree in English literature and visual arts, my passion continues to be visual arts, and I sort of saw myself as a visual arts teacher. I also had a French language qualification, Ray, which was something that was in high demand at the time. And so that was the qualification that got me employed, and it kept me employed very happily, teaching French language to kids as young as 4 and 5 years old, up to excuse me, up to middle school. So I taught first to eighth grade French, and then as I continued in my teaching career, I had the awesome opportunity to get my dream job, which was a middle school visual arts studio classroom. I did a little bit of everything. So I did visual arts, I did French, I did vocal music, as well as some special education at that time. And that was just before my shift into school leadership. But above all, it's the people. It's seeing the impact and influence that we have on the people that we care for and serve, but also I am certain that I have continued to grow through each interaction. So as much as a student or a colleague might be influenced by what I offer, I mean, their presence has a tremendous influence on me as well. So I'm a very happily employed and happily engaged educator 31 years in.
For people who may not be catching on, Brad is somebody who, whether it be in a school system that he is serving in or on the Teach Better team, he brings the culture into any room. Oh. Everyone brings in Brad when you need a boost, when you need to get to know the people in the room, and anytime you're trying to uplift the people around you. So he is the perfect person to talk about building trust with. And we're going to get into how our voice, our tone, our body language help us build trust with colleagues, students, or anything in between. Stick with us. We'll be right back. Quick pause to talk about the Teach Better Admin Mastermind. Are you an educational leader in an administrative role? Whether you be an assistant principal, a coach, a principal, a director of curriculum, or even a superintendent, this group is for you. With weekly meetings, expert guests, and more,
Bring your problems of practice to this private group and have a conversation with your colleagues around how we can better share resources and be better educational leaders in the field. Head over to our Teach Better Administrator Mastermind to sign up now. You can just show up when you need a little bit of support. I'll meet you there.
How can our physical and verbal help us build trust? For many of us, we're in our first week of school. We are meeting lots of people. And even if you've been in school for a few weeks or you're heading on in just a bit, we definitely are going to be meeting lots of new faces, whether they're students, parents, stakeholders, colleagues, leadership teams. We need to right off the bat be bringing our best foot forward and building that trust. Brad Hughes, we have a lot that we can get into, and obviously we're focusing on this topic all week long. Where do you feel like we should begin?
I think I can tell you but one of the biggest lessons that I learned as a school leader who was trying to build relationships from the get-go. It was my first year as an assistant principal, as a VP, Ray, and I was really eager to connect positively with the middle schoolers in a school that I was at. So I was at a senior public school, seventh and eighth grade, large school, and pretty big staff, as well as my first AP assignment. So I wanted to make a positive impression, but above all, I wanted to make connections with kids, because I knew that eventually some of those kids were going to be seeing me for reasons related to a setback or a misstep or some kind of behavior choice, whatever it is. So I wanted to build the relationships to begin with. But what I found myself doing, because I very sort of high energy, outgoing, sort of extroverted personality, is I was coming on too strong in terms of the connections I was trying to make. I was at transition times. I was going through and, hey, how are you doing? Good to see you. And, high-fiving kids in the hall. And I mean, that certainly has and had its place. But my principal, Betty Adams, took me aside and said, you know what, I think what I want you to do is I want you to sort of to stay in the pocket, and I want you to observe and be present, but I want you to be kind of still, be an observer at these transition times, be available, be present, but I want you to observe so that you can learn about the transitions, and then you can respond in a way where you're sort of meeting people where they are. What I was learning, Ray, was that the energy I was putting out there really wasn't matching the kids' needs, but certainly wasn't matching the staff needs as well. So it was from Betty that I learned to be more aware of and more adept in my personal energy management, and to meet people where they are in terms of energy matching. And I found it was a lot more successful over time matching the energy. So rather than putting myself into someone's space or into someone's face or into someone's sort of energy bubble, I allowed people to enter my own space in a way that made sense for them, and it really helped establish better relationships. And it also, if you're putting so much energy out there and you're expecting someone to lift their energy up to you, that can be a really big ask, and that can be off-putting for some, which I learned as well. So energy matching is one of the things that I learned early, and I try to continue to refine that.
I think that's such a beautiful way to start. I know I fall into this category, Brad, where I almost put on a different personality when I'm walking into a room where maybe I'm anxious or I know I need to do really well. And my solution is to really boost my energy and walk in with a big presence in terms of, almost abrasively going up to people and introducing myself, or coming across maybe louder or more, extroverted than I truly am. And that's such a beautiful reminder for us here. Not that, of course, we can't bring that energy. It's beautiful to bring great energy into a room, and there's definitely a space for that. But the mindset of, especially one-on-one, or when it is a big crowd, so therefore you're interacting with people more on one-on-one in a hallway setting, to meet someone's energy is really, really interesting. Tell me a bit, and I don't mean to push on this too long, but how can we match someone's energy when we engage with them? How do we determine what their energy is? I guess I don't know how to ask my question, but
No, I think I think the question's asked perfectly, and for me, it just comes down to sort of slowing everything down, especially with a new community member or a new student or family or a new colleague. Just go slow. So slow everything down, slow your movements down, slow your tone of voice and your rate of speech down a little bit. Just you want to share your calm. You kind of want to get yourself into a calm space where you're approaching someone with soft eyes and a warm smile, and really in that space where you're seeking to know more about them than communicating that you're eager for them to know you. So that was one of my pieces of advice, Ray. Just slow things down and just sort of kind of allow that space to be filled with the mutual energy, and then you can take it from there.
I think those two tips are what I would need to be successful. One is this concept of slowing things down. We all know as educators, kind of giving a peaceful energy, moving, kind of quieting the classroom, quieting the space we're in. But the other thing, Brad, is while doing that, keeping a soft and welcoming demeanor. I really appreciate that you noted putting a smile on your face. Sometimes when I am focusing on slowing things down, my face gets a little neutral. And I think the reality is that when we are approaching anyone, whether they're a familiar face or an unfamiliar face, that warm smile puts a really big emphasis on the other person's comfortability. And that sometimes has to take some conscious effort to keep that warm smile. It doesn't need to be a big toothy smile, but a little smirk or I joke with you a lot off camera, like eyebrows are great for facial expression. Being able to kind of use your face to create warmth is a skill as well.
It's a skill that we, I think, as educators and even as community members have had to relearn post-pandemic, because we spent up to 2 years in both public and community spaces with masks. And so you learn to listen with your eyes. You learn to watch the eyes and the eyebrows too. And it's what those in the self-reg community call those soft eyes, like the softness, relaxing the facial muscles, going forward to again, just to seeking to understand how you can help and how you can support, even with a little bit of a script. Like if I'm meeting someone new for the first time, hey, I'm Brad, glad you're here. Anything you need, anything I can help with, or great, like just little scripts, little conversation starters that you're seeking to say, hey, welcome into this space. Is there anything that you need, anything that I can do to help?
As an educator, I know that the beginning of the year, especially, I have a ton going on in my mind. I wonder if I almost need to collect a few key phrases that I can keep in my toolbox that I can use, even though my head has 1,000 things going on. These will be things I know I can grab at any point in time with that warm smile and start that conversation off correctly. Another thing I'm thinking, Brad, is as you are, for the sake of this dialogue, standing in a hallway, especially in a middle school, students are changing classrooms, they're moving, you're usually, there's not a lot of adults around. Your physical body language is going to make you seem approachable or unapproachable as well. I assume if you're standing in the middle of a hallway, even with that warm smile, if you have your arms crossed, that might actually be communicating two different things, and that might be seen as confusing to an outsider. What are your thoughts on physical body?
Well, I completely agree. Maintaining a relaxed and open stance, maybe with feet kind of gently planted, maybe just resting on the balls of your feet a little bit, shoulders relaxed and arms sort of open. With what I find is when I have my palms up, I can actually feel a transformative shift in my energy with palms up as opposed to arms crossed or fists clenched. I love to speak with my hands, and the hands are sort of invitations to either stay out of your space if your hands are up like this, or to come into the space if they're sort of at a neutral or open position. So you can communicate a lot in a busy hallway just with eye contact and a smile, and even with a nod or raised eyebrows. There are a number of students I enjoy seeing, and we've got a little familiar greeting. All we do is we just give our chin a little bit of a tip up, and our eyebrows go up like that. So that's all it takes, is that little bit of acknowledgement that, hey, I see you, I'm glad you're here, and I'm here for you. One other tip I can share with educators is what I picked up in something that I read really recently, a quick check-in, especially with students with whom you're having frequent conversations about their happiness, success, and well-being, is that quick thumbs up or thumbs down. So if you've got eye contact with a child and and you're keeping an eye on how they're doing or feeling for whatever reason, I just let them know I'm going to give you a quick thumbs up and thumbs down. If you give me a thumbs up, we're all good. If you give me a thumbs down, that means, hey, let's make time to reconnect at some point today, and we can have a longer conversation about how we can help. So those little routines, especially with key students and key individuals, can really help you gather information as well as make those connections during the day.
And what a beautiful way to start that, even by proclaiming that to a classroom or a full group, to say, we're going to have some natural ways that we are going to interact. And then we're going to have a little bit of a secret language that you can choose to take advantage of or not. But just know that I will always respond to it. So you're really creating that safe space, even if in that uncomfortability, they feel like reaching out is not a possibility. And I love, Brad, that your secret code with some of these students doesn't have to have an immediate reaction. It doesn't mean I'm going to give a thumbs down and I'm going to get immediate attention from Mr. Hughes. Instead, it's he's going to come hunt me down later. I have trust that he's going to make space for me. But also, as an adult, Brad, you might have other things that you need to do. So you have it on your list. It just doesn't need to happen in that immediate moment.
I'm glad you mentioned that. And that's really powerful, especially in a setting at a school, whether it may be a middle school or a high school, where kids are on Rotary, that there's a lot of stress associated with kids and students being in the right place at the right time. And so if they give you a thumbs down and you pull them right away, that also might add to the stress of they're not in their math or they're not in their language or science class at the right time, which causes concern or confusion for the receiving teacher. All that to say, you want to back that up with just some clear communication around your expectations. And one is that I never expect a kid to give me a thumbs up if they're really thumbs down. So you want to make that clear, because kids want to please and connect positively with the adults. They want the adults around them to think and know that they're doing okay. So I always tell them, please be honest. If it's a thumbs down, just give me a quick thumbs down. I don't expect it to be anything other than who you are and how you are in that moment. And then it's about making that time convenient for the student to reduce their stress around needing to leave a classroom or to receive a call from the office and get pulled. So as often as possible, just trying to figure out what's the easiest and the most stress-free way for us to connect. Is it at a recess or a lunchtime? Is it a quick call to the office, or are you going to ask to be, whatever it is?
So many powerful takeaways during this episode already. I do want to note that, Brad, one of the things that I really love about the Teach Further model, which I know so many people in our community utilize. If you're looking to learn about it, we have free and full courses in the academy. But that model really focuses on folding in essential skills into our learning in a more organic fashion. One of the videos that you guys can find on YouTube, it's a free video. I have to look it up, but all I know, I've seen it 300 times because I used it every year. I utilized it to get into one of the lessons we were doing, but it was an organic way to also share this information with students that body language has an effect. So we were constantly, even while in the middle of a science lesson, discussing how body language can affect our learning. And it was this really cool British guy. He had like 2 or 3 videos that I loved and showed every year. And there was an entire body language video on like palms out versus palms closed. And it was really interesting to not only use this as my own knowledge, but also share that with students so that they could begin using their body language to really communicate what they hoped to communicate. And so that we could have some neutral language if I was, at their desk and we were in a conversation and their arms were crossed, that we could very easily have some dialogue around, you seem very closed off. That's what your arms being crossed means. That's what I try to communicate when I stand this way. Is that how you're feeling? Is this a comfort? There's so many different things that you're able to kind of dialogue around that.
And what you're communicating to me and to our listeners right now, Ray, is that stance of curiosity, which is it's crucial in coming alongside others and to giving feedback to kids or colleagues. Instead of saying, why are your arms crossed? Or you look so closed off, or what's the matter with you? Like making a declarative sentence, a judgment sentence about what you're seeing, you're sharing your stance of curiosity. I'm noticing that your arms are crossed, or I'm wondering if you're feeling kind of stressed out right now. Just if you approach those interactions with a stance of curiosity, you're wondering, you're seeking to learn more. You could be wrong, because if you're wrong, that's okay. You can learn from that too. But that stance of curiosity, I think, is crucial to maintaining and engendering relationships, especially with those that you don't know well yet.
You do that so well. Like anybody who goes and listens to past lives from you or any actual interaction they've had with you in person, you do that so well. And every time I hear you using those key phrases, because you do like rotate your phrases with this curiosity lens, every single time you do it, in the back of my mind, I'm like, oh, I have to do that better. Every time.
I'm going to gently push back and say I think you do it so well. I mean, you were doing it right there in that anecdote, and it's something that we can all continue to strive towards. And it's about, I guess, embodying that curiosity and seeking to understand before being understood. And as educators, we're in the business of being understood. Like we want kids and everyone we're in contact with to know and feel that we're experts in our field, and we've got the philosophy, we've got the confidence, we've got the know-how. But there is a significant shift going on in our classrooms and communities to more collaborative, curious stances. And even for teachers, school leaders, superintendents, district leaders, that stance of curiosity, along with that, is packaged some humility. That we're all members of a learning community, and we all have things to learn from and with each other.
I wonder, Brad, if that's maybe, I know we have to wrap up this dialogue, but if that's maybe another element of building trust. I wonder if, as I'm reflecting on always hoping and wishing that you're in the room because you're such a beautiful, safe space for educators and we always have such great dialogue. I wonder if your approach to being curious over making assumptions really does help build trust, because I always feel seen and understood. And an avenue in which I don't feel that way is when somebody makes assumptions about me without letting me maybe explain their misinterpretation. Do you mind speaking to that a little bit?
I'd be happy to. And I see it alive in my work as a school leader. And what I want to make sure is that every interaction that I have, especially with reports or with kids, I want to, unless it's a specific supervisory or disciplinary lens that I'm coming, like we naturally want to do and be seen at our best, especially by our school leaders and our other district leaders. For me, it's all about seeing and reflecting back to others the aspects of their practice that they may not have reflected back to them as often as needed. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, teaching can be such a connective profession, but can also feel so isolating. And so, as you know, as a school leader, when I'm making connections with others, I'm trying to reflect back the great things that I see. I'm trying to wonder about what the effect on kids might have been about instructional decisions. It does pave the way for feedback. If there's a feedback for growth moment that's needed where performance and expectations aren't yet meeting, but in order to move everyone forward, including yourself, you have to engender that trust that even in the face of making a misstep or a mistake, you're going to be cheered on.
So many amazing takeaways here. Stick with us as we reflect on some key takeaways from the episode. Continuing with our verbal and physical choices to help us foster trusting relationships with new friends, family, and colleagues that we're interacting with. We're going to get into some key takeaways, and we're going to make sure you have Brad Hughes' contact information. Obviously, as a member of our Teach Better team, you can always go to teachbetter.com to connect with Brad, but there are some other wonderful ways, including social media and other outlets that we'd love to have you connect with him. He is an incredible, incredible educator to connect with. So I can only encourage you all at my highest level to add him to your PLN. Before we get into all that information, Brad, if you had to reflect on one key takeaway that you hope listeners today are able to stick in their back pocket, stick in their tool belt, and then enter into the school year with success, what do you hope they keep in mind?
Ray, I think for me, it does come back to how we opened our conversation. It is just being aware of our spaces and places and being aware of opportunities for connection where we're trying to reduce stress for others and we're trying to build the trust. So whether it's with soft eyes, soft language, slowing down our movements, our tone of voice, maintaining open, relaxed posture. I'd say also looking for opportunities to connect through humor and through humility as well. I mean, the more that we know and can support each other through the missteps and the mistakes and the setbacks of life, the more human we all feel. And that really, to me, is what being a human engaged in education is all about. Is recognizing that it's a very human endeavor. We want and expect the best of ourselves for our students, and there are high stakes, no question about it. But it's such a human endeavor with so many variables that mistakes, missteps, and setbacks are going to happen. So if we can laugh through them and learn through them as well, that's all part of growing a thriving community.
Brad, I feel like all I've done this episode is analyze you and our friendship. And I have to add in, I can't believe we did not talk about humor at all in this episode, because while I can sing your praises as somebody who I always love conversations with, I always feel seen, I always feel heard, I also enter into every single moment with you, whether it be a very big Zoom call or even just a conversation in a recording, knowing I'm going to giggle. And I love that. I love that you are so punny and always making a good joke when appropriate. And I forgot. I can't believe we didn't even talk on that. We'll have to do so many more episodes together to talk about humor.
I would love that. I'd love nothing more than that, because connecting with kids, connecting with everyone is my passion. Connecting with kids especially, and I've continued to thrive through those connections. And I do use humor and terrible, terrible principal jokes in all of my interactions with kids, but it is all part of building the relationship, and also in my role, building the approachability where 10-1, our positive interactions are going to outweigh sort of a negative interaction where there might be some discipline or correction involved. And I want kids and adults to know that I'm safe to be around, and I'm also trying to demonstrate that I'm learning through my practice as well. If I mess up, I do my best to own it, and I try to let staff and kids know if I've made a misstep or a mistake, what I've learned, what I'm not going to do, or what I'm going to do next time differently, and just again, just learning that we're all engaged in a very human endeavor. We're just trying to make it through one day at a time, making life a little bit better for others.
Friends, I hope you were able to take little tidbits away from this episode. We are focusing on this topic all week long, and we still have plenty more to come. Brad, before we wrap up today's conversation, do you mind sharing how our community here can stay connected to you?
So many ways, Ray. Thanks. I'm active on Facebook and Instagram. I'm at _Brad_Hughes. You can also reach me at brad@teachbetter.com. And as Ray said, if you happen to be on our teachbetter.com website, click on Meet the Team, get to know our team, and you can reach me there. I'd be happy to hear from you. And if there's any way that I can support your work now or in the future, or make that positive connection, I'd love to hear from you.
Brad, thank you so much for coming on the show. This was a great conversation.
It's been a pleasure. I'm looking forward to being here early and often, Ray.